What if Ryuzo hadn't betrayed Jin? What if Taka hadn't died right before our eyes? What if Jin had refused to become the ghost? Would everything have turned out differently? Sometimes, a game tells not just the story of a war, but also the story of the silence within a person. Ghost of Tsushima offers exactly this kind of experience. On that island where swords clash and honor is tested by shadows, Jin Sakai's story is not just a tale of heroism, but also a novel of fragmentation, transformation, and choices. A universe where this ghost was never born, but another legend began. What if Ryuzo hadn't betrayed Jin? Some betrayals are not just fought with swords, but happen when you look each other in the eye. In Ghost of Tsushima, Ryuzo's betrayal was exactly such a moment for me.
Ryuzo.
It felt as if not only Jin, but we as players were stabbed in the back as well. Ryuzo had made a deal with Khotun Khan to protect his men, who were on the brink of starving to death. We witnessed his betrayal for the first time during the raid on Castle Kaneda. Even though Jin called out to him one last time in hope, it was already too late.
Enough! It's not too late. Help me save our home. It belongs to them now. Ryuzo.
Swords were drawn. Friendship gave way to enmity. There was no hesitation in Ryuzo's eyes. He was stern, cold. What he felt inside was not conflict, but resignation. At that moment, the betrayal of the Straw Hats was complete, and Taka's death was drawing near. And from then on, Jin would have to walk in the shadow of war, even with his friends. Because the mark left by betrayal is not just a sword wound, but the loss of trust. But just imagine, what if Ryuzo had remained loyal? First of all, the story would change completely. Ryuzo would become Jin's greatest ally in the defense of Tsushima. The partnership established in Ryuzo's introductory mission at the beginning of the game would continue throughout the story. Just imagine Ryuzo and his men fighting side by side with a samurai during the castle Kaneda. Thanks to this, Jin would rescue his uncle Shimura much more easily. In such a case, Jin's status would also be different. Since there would be no betrayal, Jin wouldn't feel so much loneliness and distress. Maybe Jin's use of ghost tactics, which violate samurai honor, would still be a subject of debate, but at least he wouldn't be a man stabbed in the back. A shared victory would also elevate Jin's reputation, and most importantly, if Ryuzo had remained loyal, Taka would have survived. Taka's survival would have eased the heavy burden of guilt and pain on both Yuna and Jin. If Ryuzo hadn't betrayed him, Jin would have been a hero who fought with a stronger ally and felt less alone. When it comes to character development, things would have taken a completely different turn. The biggest change in Jin Sakai's story would have been the easing of his loneliness and guilt. As you know, Jin is a character who stands against samurai values in order to save his people. Ryuzo by his side, he would still have experienced this inner conflict, but with an old friend beside him, he wouldn't have been so devastated. Now imagine not a lone ghost, but two old friends fighting side by side. Ryuzo's personal development would have changed completely as well. If he hadn't betrayed, he would have overcome his old grudges and become a truly loyal ally. He would have continued to lead his starving men, showing them that it was right to trust again. In this way, Ryuzo would have gained the identity of a hero. Someone who shines with sacrifice and a passion for leadership. Both characters would have developed in a more positive direction. Jin's loneliness would have lessened, and Ryuzo would have felt proud. In this scenario, the themes of loyalty, friendship, and honor would have come to the forefront. As for gameplay, if Ryuzo had been an ally, the missions would have been based on cooperation. Jin and Ryuzo would infiltrate camps together and conquer fortresses side by side. Just like in the missions The Tale of Ryuzo and Blood on the Grass, they would infiltrate enemy camps or silos together and carry out strategic attacks. With every step, trust. With every blow, the echo of an old friendship. In this scenario, where betrayal is replaced, we would now see two old friends fighting side by side. Even so, the creators at Sucker Punch aim to keep Jin's emotional conflict strong. They wrote Ryuzo not as a classic villain, but as a grey character. And with Ryuzo's betrayal, they made Jin's loneliness and transformation more believable. If Ryuzo had remained loyal, Jin's inner conflict might not have disappeared completely, but there wouldn't have been this much turmoil. Because in Ghost of Tsushima, what truly changed the characters were not the wars they fought, but the relationships they built or destroyed. Ryuzo's betrayal was not just the destruction of a friendship, but also the turning point in Jin's fate. But if that betrayal hadn't happened, maybe Jin wouldn't have been so broken inside. What if Taka hadn't died right before our eyes? In the first episode, we imagined a universe where Ryuzo remained loyal. Now, let's go to a world in that alternate universe where Taka survived. Sometimes a loss doesn't just take one person, but carries away several hearts with it. Taka's death was exactly one of those moments for me. In the main story, Taka falls into the hands of Khotun Khan, and during the Reckoning in Blood mission, the Khan executes him right in front of Jin's eyes. The camera locks onto Jin's face, because pain grows in the eyes of the one who witnesses it, and this death doesn't just change Yuna, it deeply transforms Jin as well. But what if Ryuzo hadn't betrayed them? If Taka never fell into the Khan's hands, if that execution scene never happened, maybe that day would have been a day of victory, not loss. Taka's death was one of the key moments of the story. Shimura had promised that if Jin and his allies reclaimed Castle Kaneda, Taka and Yuna would be granted permission to leave the island. However, just like in the main story of the game, Taka chooses to help Jin in order to overcome his fear. Therefore, in a scenario where Taka's death does not occur, even if Yuna wanted to leave, Taka would have wanted to stay. As for Yuna, she couldn't leave her brother alone. She would have continued to have Jin together with him. In terms of character development, Taka's death deeply affects the relationships between Jin, Yuna, and Taka. Taka follows Jin because he wants to be brave, and this ends up costing him dearly. His sacrifice is a testament to his fighting Jin's leadership. In Jin's personal development, this tragic death becomes a crucial step in his embracing the ghost identity. He becomes tougher. If Taka had survived, Jin wouldn't have this sense of guilt and pain. Therefore, his psychological development would have taken a completely different path. Taka's presence would also have been reflected in the game's missions and mechanics. The Hammer and Anvil quest at the beginning of the game is the moment when Taka makes the grappling hook for Jin. If Taka had survived, the developers would have made greater use of his craftsmanship skills. There could even have been new side quests related to upgrading Jin's katana or armor. In the actual story, Yuna gives Jin the ghost armor forged by Taka. If Taka had survived, perhaps he would have completed this armor himself. Looking at the game's cinematic flow, Taka's death was one of the most impactful moments in the game. If Taka had survived, Sucker Punch would have had to write other dramatic scenes to create a similar impact, because sacrifice was the main theme of Ghost of Tsushima. Instead of Taka's death scene, perhaps the loss of another character or scenes deepening Jin's conflict with his honor could have been explored. What if Jin had refused to become the ghost? When Jin Sakai chose to become the ghost, he won a war, but he lost an identity. The transformation shown to us in Ghost of Tsushima was actually the result of necessity. But what if Jin hadn't become the ghost? Could Tsushima still have been saved? In the actual game, the ghost identity is a turning point both in gameplay and in the story. Silent assassinations, poison bombs, enemies scattering in fear, these were signs that Jin had abandoned traditional ways. But these methods inspired the people, demoralized the enemy, and turned the war in Jin's favor. But what if none of this had happened? What if Jin had fought like a samurai to the very end and prevented the birth of the ghost? Just imagine there would have been heavy losses on every front, from Komodo to Yutama. Khotun psychological advantage would have continued. Maybe the people would have surrendered not to Jin, but to despair. Would there still have been hope? Could a strong samurai army have been formed with Lord Shimura's support? Jin would have fought by looking the enemy in the eyes, not from the shadows, but this path would have been much longer and far bloodier. Sucker Punch made Jin's transformation not only dramatic, but also logical. The ghost was born out of necessity. The conflict between the samurai and the ghost within Jin was one of the game's most important themes. The clash of swords was not only against the enemy, but also a battle with Jin's own soul. As Sucker Punch's creative director Jason Connell said in an interview, Ghost of Tsushima is a story about people. Jin's story is told through his relationships with those around him and how he reflects upon them. And the face beneath that mask was a symbol of the battle within Jin. His radical transformation was a reflection of the events and people around him. If this story has truly touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe for many more and kindly like this video. After all this, the final question is, was victory itself more valuable or the way you achieved it? And tell me, would you truly give up your very own honor to save your beloved people?
What does honor mean to you?
I guess protecting people,
Thank you, my lord.
the ones who can't fight for themselves.
I stand with the ghost.
You have no honor.
I have no honor, but I will not kill my family.